We are here. We are here with my man Chris from Taste Take, man. Let's just jump right into it, man. I mean, this episode was titled Betrayed, and I think it's the shortest out of the three so far. The first two was like 55, 56 minutes. But we open up, Chris, with just kind of, again, establishing these characters and establishing the infiltration of the Skrulls as we see them setting up one of their missions to go out to the Royal Armies or the Royal Navy to get this thing popping off. And the first question I have for you, Chris, is this. I think his name was Beto. He was one of the new recruits that guy had recruited in episode 1. Is it me, Chris, or you think he gonna do something for the good? Like I'm referring to, he's gonna turn on Gravik because he doesn't seem to be like wanting to get down with this war and start in World War III. He just wants some food. He want a house over his head. He want to be comfortable. Do you feel like that Beto character will be someone to look forward to moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, but maybe not even him. Like his whole goon squad doesn't seem so goony all the time.
Yeah,
and they kind of feel like they're just kind of following him, not out of like pure like allegiance, just kind of like maybe a little bit of fear. So I think that's liable for a couple of those dudes in that and gals in the goon squad.
It'll be interesting because again, that's one of my issues going into this series, Chris, was being familiar with Secret Invasion to a certain extent from the comics perspective. This is a big story. A big story for 6 episodes scared me. And I think we're starting to see, especially in this episode, that it's so much story that some things just won't be fleshed out enough. Because to your point, I would assume that there are some people like Beto who isn't really down to take over the world and kill innocent people, but they're just doing that because it is kind of one of those situations where, hey, they provided me with food, clothes, all this stuff. So I'll just be for the cause, just for my well-being. But I wonder if there is a fraction of the group that isn't comfortable with Gravik's, type of the way he's handling things, or if they're all just there for the cause. And that's something I think if it was maybe a little bit more fleshed out, maybe more episodes, we would have those type of conversations.
No, I totally agree. I mean, there's a lot of stuff. I mean, we're gonna get into it, but it's like, oh, you threw that in there at this fourth quarter. You threw that in there in the fourth quarter. There's just a lot. And I kind of what does this tie into next? Like as a big project, is it the Marvels? I guess
the sequel to Captain Marvel, and then kind of the prelude into the Marvel. So I'm pretty
without Captain Marvel, by the way.
Well, hey, we got 4 more episodes, or 3 more. She might pop up, or Monica Rambeau might pop up. But yeah, this I would hope. And that's the thing, too, with the whole MCU TV shows announcement was Kevin Feige had said, he said 2 things. One, you didn't have to watch the series to follow along. But then he was like, no, you got to watch these series to know what's going on. There's only been, correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, there's only been 3 series so far, to my memory serves correctly, that have tied into movies. WandaVision, Becoming the Scarlet Witch, tied into Doctor Strange, Falcon and Winter Soldier. We haven't seen it yet, but obviously we know Falcon, or I'd say Cap, is going to have his own movie based on the ramifications of that show. In low key, I guess you could say Kang, The One Who Remains, tied into Quantumania. So everything else, Hawkeye, She-Hulk, Moon Knight, What If, those shows haven't really built into another show. So I'm hoping that this, to your point, is a show that leads into November, which is when the Marvels comes out. At least one would think, because it's so connected.
And yeah, it has to. I just didn't know if they made an actual statement or announcement. But yeah, that's the only thing that would make sense.
Yeah, man, I think they will. If they're smart, they will. But speaking of smart, man, this villain, Gravik, man, played by Kingsley Benadir. Question I bring to you, Chris, is how have you felt about Gravik? Again, we covered all the shows, bro, and most of the Disney Plus shows have had some very terrible villains. Flag Smashers, the tracksuit mafias, like they've been goofy. The only one I really liked is probably Agatha. And
stuff, yeah.
But everything else has been lackluster. So the question I have for you, Chris, Gravik, is he giving you the gravitas? Is he giving you a villainous nature, or is he kind of lacking?
To me, no. I don't have a problem with him in the show. I think based on Disney Plus shows and a potentially low bar, he is one of the better villains. And I think he's acting well in the show. I think he's like doing the lines. He's believable in it. I think he's one of the best. I think he's one of the best ones.
I agree with you, man. Especially going back to our dislike of episode 1. Not that it was terrible, but out of the 3, it's been the weakest. He had like 2 lines. But since episode 2, he's been showing, well, at the end of episode 1, killing Marie, which, complete side note, I'm just curious, this is our first time talking about it. Do you believe Maria Hill's dead?
I don't know if I believe she's dead. I don't think the daughter's dead. I don't know if anybody's dead.
It's all the ruse. I'm definitely with you there. And we'll talk about Gaia. But yeah, I think she's still out there somewhere. But yeah, man, I definitely have felt his presence. I still, I don't think I've fully have gravitated towards his statement of his mission. Like the hatred I get, like, okay, Nick Fury made a promise 30 years ago. He's lacking on the promise. I get the frustration there, but then to fuel that frustration in annihilating humanity, I don't know if I've believed that transition for the character, even though obviously we were just meeting him. But do you feel like that whole, does it feel a little bit too mustache twirly, end of the world villain type of motivations, or do you feel like he has every right to be like, annihilation, humans are terrible, they're killing each other, we might as well accelerate the process?
I don't think so, because it's like, bro, you could just chill. Like we made room for you. Like you could just hang out. Like just be cool. But I did see a little mini parallel to the X-Men when they were talking in this episode about like, no, like they'll know the good ones versus the bad ones, and it's like you could see like a Magneto in him to be like, no, there is no separation. They won't understand that. And then another thing I loved is when Sam Jack was complaining about the million Skrulls and how, like, you know, this dude's telling them that they can coexist, and he's like, humans can't even coexist. I like that line a lot.
Spitting facts, yeah. I agree with you, man. I think there's definitely, and again, this is my whole fear of 6 episodes, and hopefully this is a ramification. We still see these ripple effects in MCU, but yeah, I hope that there is a lot more to explore with this character. But, you know, for my comic book nerds out there, last week, Chris, the whole speculation online was when Gaia was going through the files, she came across experiments, and as you can see on the screen now, it is confirmed. A lot of people were thinking that they were creating their own versions of the Super Skrulls, who in the comics were, it was one individual that were able to take on the powers of the Fantastic Four, but obviously we don't have the Fantastic Four in the MCU yet. So they kind of remixed it, and they have Groot, Extremis from Iron Man 3, Frost Giants from your favorite Thor, Dark World, as well as the Colixian from, you know, Infinity
the big dude from Infinity,
who got his hand cut off. Shout out to Wong. Super Skrulls, Chris, again, the MCU introducing us something. We got time travel, multiverse. Now we have the abilities of these aliens to take on these super powered Avengers. What do you think about that, man? Do you think we're going to actually see a Super Skrull in full effect going against another superhuman and an Avenger in this series?
I mean, hopefully. I don't have much knowledge of the Skrulls from the comics, so I was learning about that, you know, just watching it. And then from what I understand, it's originally those four are supposed to be the Fantastic Four, but because we don't have them in, you know, so I was learning about that today. But yeah, I mean, I hope they set something up so it's like higher stakes and just like gets us more like invested in it. But yeah. Like it has potential here. I don't want to sound like I'm hate. Like it just didn't grab me all the way like a full bear hug. It's right now it's a church hug. It's like just right. Maybe next week it might give me like a full dap, like a LeBron James handshake. There we go. just I'm patient.
I'm certain LeBron's a Skrull, because how the hell do you know all your handshakes from high school into your 20-something years? It's crazy. So yeah, man, I'm totally with you, Chris, on the Super Skrull angle, because again, I'll go back to the advertisement. This is a crossover event. I would like to see Gravis and Gravik and any other people that he's injected with this serum fighting against not just humans, but I want to see them. I don't know, is that a Captain Marvel? Is that a Monica Rambeau? Is that a Miss Marvel? I mean, there's no.
Or is it all of them?
Is it all of them, right? Yeah. I would like to see, and again, trailers sometimes get the hype going, but there is a shot in the trailer. I don't know if you remember the trailer for this show where you see Gravik, he's in the middle of the streets and he has the Groot arm that comes out. So we will see them taking form of a sense, but again, is it against a human or is it against like actual formidable enemies like the Avengers, which we'll see if Disney Plus got that Avenger money to see if they can get someone on.
They're referencing it quite often to not want to use them.
They are.
It's only been 3 episodes, and I'm like I feel like every episode it's like, hey, what are you doing? What are you talking about? Hey, and also like where are they? Why wouldn't they be there already? But yeah.
Well, to be fair, and this is the whole kind of disconnect in MCU, we don't really have an Avenger or Avengers team. Like who is the team right now? Doctor Strange is off doing stuff with Clea and Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness fixing incursions. No one knows who Spider-Man is. She-Hulk is new. Captain America hasn't been introduced yet, at least to the MCU as far as Captain America. So I don't even know who's on the team right now, Chris. Like it's pretty empty roster, bro.
Yeah, you got.
Who do we call? The Ghostbusters.
They have no bench.
They don't got no bench, man. They got to start from scratch. But getting back to the episode, Chris, we're in your hometown, your place, New York City, 1998, where Nick meets Vera in her human form. And, we get a little Easter egg of her bringing up Dracoff, who we know from the Black Widow films. Nice little call out for a film that I'm not a fan of. We see Nick and Priscilla are their early days of becoming a thing. And I'm wondering how those 30 years looked. I mentioned it last week in regards to the whole Gravik, again, going back to where his anger stems from. Do you think, Chris, that Gravik was adopted by Priscilla and Nick Fury as like their adopted son? And maybe that's where some of more anger comes from. Like he lost his actual parents. He was adopted by a human and a Skrull, and then they end up letting him go. Well, at least one of them, and Nick Fury. Do you think some of that anger stems from potentially him being an adoptive son of Nick Fury and him being let down by his daddy?
Yeah, I think so, and I hope so, because that makes like a more compelling story. So I think that's like a 100% plausible explanation for it, for sure.
Because I don't know if we don't know the whole situation of can you reproduce with the Skrulls. So I don't know if they have like a half Skrull baby running around somewhere in the MCU, Mr. Fury, which brings us into this scene, man. I'm just curious, Chris, on whose side do you kind of lean on in this kind of argument between Priscilla and Fury regarding him leaving everything? The blip, we understand he was blipped in Infinity War, and once everything was reversed, he went back to space, and his ego was beaten up. Man. Do you lean more towards Priscilla of her husband leaving him, or do you feel like Nick Fury just needed some time to clear his head and get his swagger back?
I don't know. Maybe my toxic trait is thinking like, girl, it's Nick Fury. What you thought was going to happen, like marrying or dating a guy like Nick Fury,
right?
The Avengers. It's like he ain't gonna be home for dinner every day. I always say that.
Right.
Like to me, she should expect like it won't be traditional. Or maybe what she deserves.
She's an alien too. Like you wouldn't imagine like aliens follow the same human rules of relationships and open communication.
She probably like the less time I spend with humans, the better. So like, please take your time, bro. I mean, I would. It's like it's not surprising, is what I would say. It's like being married to a basketball player and wondering why he's not home every night.
Right.
Well, I'm playing Utah tonight, so I literally can't.
I can't be home, baby. No, I definitely kind of I understand where she was coming from. Well, to a certain extent, because we just met them as a couple. This question again for you, man, is going back to toxic traits, Chris. When my man sees that his wife, who he's been absent from, we don't know if there was any side pieces coming out of the Fury home, but she gets a call from someone, and we'll talk about the call she gets at the end of this episode. But if you're Nick Fury, Chris, are you picking up that phone? If you're Nick Fury, Chris, again, going back to toxicity, we just got done watching The Idol. Are you opening that phone and seeing who just called your wife? Or are you just like, you know what? I've been gone for a long time. I can't control the house like I used to. What you doing if you're Nick Fury right now, Chris?
If I'm Nick Fury, if I'm Chris Tate, if I'm LeBron James, if I'm Barack Obama, I'm not picking up nobody's phone. I don't care who's calling you, and I hope you don't pick up my phone when that thing start ringing. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
All right, I can respect that, man. But all I'm saying is, if I'm Nick Fury, this ain't no normal situation. You know what I'm saying? She's a Skrull. You don't know who to trust. Your eyes got plucked out. You lost your right eye. Coulson. You lost your left eye in Black Widow. You lost your heart in Maria Hill. He can't trust anyone, man. I don't know, bro. I'm at least putting a tracker on the phone, Chris.
He might already have that on there. And also, you probably like, I just pulled up. I gotta just chill.
Right,
you gotta be on your best behavior. You gotta make some breakfast, put some coffee on the stove. Yeah.
Take out the lawn, take out the trash. It's a lot of stuff he's been missing these last few years, man. Is it me, or is it almost make Gravik seem a little lackluster as a villain, that he can't see through her lies? Because this whole conversation they're having is based on last week. Okay, the guy we tried to break out, okay, he didn't know about our safe house. So how did he know? Which is a great point. And her whole thing was, well, I would assume he took an educated guess to find us. It's like, no, that's not the answer I'm looking for. So again, your thoughts on guys lying, but I guess playing to Gravik's point, maybe he knew she was, I don't know, Chris. We'll get to another moment later in the episode. I'm like, why did he let that get by? What do you think about her lying skills? But more importantly, do you think Gravik was just kind of just adding it up, these lies that she's making?
Yeah, I mean, I never thought of it in this way, so that's cool. But also she does catch that heat at the end, so then maybe he had a inkling about it.
Thinking about it, going back to episode 2, he's known Gaia since they were kids, because there's a scene where they're both, he's being brought in by Nick Fury and introduced Nick Fury, and then we see young Gaia's there. So I think there might be, even though he seems to be very ruthless and cold and calculated, I think that he might have a soft spot for Gaia. And also, obviously, we know that he's probably using her too, because he knows that that's Talos' daughter. So it's a little bit like stab, I got your daughter. So
yeah, there could be like a little commisery, because it's like, I understand a complicated relationship between a parent or that type of thing.
I wonder if that's the case. Well, we'll talk about it later. He shoots her at least in cold blood in his eyes. But I do think there was a little bit of like, he wants to give her a chance because he known her since a young age, but also he probably wants to keep her around just to maybe stick it to her dad a little bit further. But I'm torn on that, because again, to me, it seems very apparent that she's been lying a lot of the times.
Apparent.
Listen, man, I'm here all week, guys. I'm here all week. But I'm not going to lie, Chris, man. Again, I know we're not getting a ton of action, and I'm a big dialogue fan of movies and shows.
Yeah.
I don't know, Chris, this scene here, and also the scene last week with Fury and Rhodey, I'm loving these scenes, bro. Just like these talking about World War I and how, people laid their lives on the line for invaders to come in, and he wants blood. I don't know, man. I thought this was one of the most fire scenes of the episode. And there was no action. It was just two characters that are cut from the same cloth, but obviously have taken different paths, man. What did you think about Gravik and Talos having a sparring match with the words?
No, I agree. I'm a dialogue fan, so I did that scene. I did like that scene. I like the scene with Rhodey and Fury at that meeting. Yeah, man. It's been some good stuff.
Kingsley has really been showing off his acting chops, that he can really lean into. He does have more layers to him, even though I feel like his whole destroying Earth hasn't been as fleshed out as I want it to be. He's getting moments to shine when he's having these one-on-one dialogues. When it's more personal, I really think he gets the time to shine versus kind of the global scale of taking over the world. But what did you think of this? Was this more of like a flex, like him showing Talos that we're all one unit, or this was like, I'm everywhere at all times? How did you take this moment? And we saw this in the trailer, but it was still pretty cool to see in an episode of Gravik showing his flexing on Talos.
Well, the first thing I obviously thought of was well, it's not obvious, but if you know me, it is obvious. First thing I thought of was Rush Hour 2, when they're at the massage parlor and Chris Tucker smashes Ricky Tan's laptop.
The guy, yeah, he's like,
and then everyone stands up and he's like,
get your ass up, Ricky.
I would like to pay you for that laptop. That's an old model. Like, why you tell me this man rolls like this? Anyway.
Shout out to Rush Hour, bro.
Yeah. Rush Hour 4 on the way. No, I didn't know that it was like we are all one, but it was just like I thought it was cool, and I kind of forgot that was in the trailer, so it was kind of fresh for me to see it again. But I just thought, like, I was like, okay, that's kind of impressive. Like, damn, like my team rolls deep. And then I thought it was a cool shot when they all just like chilled and sat back down. Right there, when they all just went back to eating and all that, and then the lady just came and took the coffee or whatever. Yeah. Cool scene.
It's a flex to me, Chris, because in two minds, I do think it is one of those, like, we're one unit. Like with you, Talos, you're not the leader. You never had all of us unified as you might have think. Like, they are willing to die for me, and because to the point earlier about when they choose their faces, they could just turn to anyone to show that they're Skrulls in the moment, but they chose to show you that it's Gravik that they're deciding to put their face on, just to, again, showing like one team, one dream, one face, one plan. So this shows that unified nature of what he has going on with his crew. But listen, man, Talos, he about that life, Chris, because even though we see that there's a bunch of Graviks running around him, he's surrounded. He's in enemy territory, Chris. But that did not stop my man Talos from, as soon as he says, you know what, you're lucky I don't just body you right now, let alone have your daughter in a body bag. Chris, my man Talos said, bro, you done effed up. You done escalated this to another level. And he stabs my man in the hand and says, that's just a warning to what's to come. I thought that was badass. I'm not going to lie, Chris. But this is one of those like little nitpicks I have in movies and shows. Why didn't Gravik just grab his ass and kill him right then and there? What was the point of him, allowing this man to not only punk you in front of your followers, but then also just to walk away, having that kind of, and I totally forgot. Let me put up the screen. He didn't just stab him, Chris. I forgot about this. He put my hands around, put his hands on his throat, choked this man. That's another level of disrespect, Chris. I don't know how Talos is able to walk out of that room alive.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen in many movies where they could have just killed him right there. So I didn't think so much about that. I just thought like, okay, because the guy knows he can heal or whatever, but or just maybe he needs that stuff to hype himself up more to like keep his plan going. But yeah, obviously could have killed him.
That's what I'm thinking the whole time, man. I think of so many movies where villains give you their whole plan before they, giving the heroes time to regroup. It's like it's just. I
think Austin Powers addresses it.
Austin Powers is classic, man. But it's just one of those. It's like a nitpick of mine. And then this goes back to what I mentioned about Gaia. Maybe deep down, and there's some politics too, because I think Gravik says to him that you are, he's not the general, but he used to be a general. So maybe there's some Skrull not ritual, but like don't hit elders, kill elders.
Like some sort of like a respect thing. Like respect, we're not at battle or whatever. Yeah, I understand.
Yeah, and plus parlay. So they're not supposed to kill each other. I guess they're taking, even though, he obviously stabbed him and used the weapon. So maybe there is a level of restraint and respect from Gravik where he could have just killed him right then and there. But he's just still just kind of playing along and kind of teasing them along. But I did like
the Iron Man 3 callback from that scene.
The Iron Man 3. Oh, the extremists. That is they had the healing powers whenever you would shoot them or stab them. They had the ability to kind of come back, which is, going back to our conversation earlier with the Super Skrulls. That is one of their abilities, or at least the ability here is to regenerate themselves. So I do think another character that we'll talk about later, she might have taken some of that Super Skrull juice to regenerate herself a little bit later. But I don't know how you feel about this relationship, man, but I think it's one of the shining spots of this show and also in this episode, the back and forth, the banter between Nick Fury and Talos, man. Again, as you mentioned, I don't revisit Captain Marvel too much, but I don't remember their banter being this good. Of course, we know that was their first time meeting, but this show, Nick Fury, or I should say Sam Jackson and Ben Mendelsohn, we know they've been friends for 30 years, but we obviously haven't seen that friendship for 30 years. The way they play it, I can see them being friends that long. Yeah, I think their banter is great, Chris. What did you think about this scene, their banter, their chemistry, but also did you feel like Nick Fury, and we'll talk about it later, was disrespected in this episode by Talos, kind of undermining all the stuff he's done in the MCU so far?
What you do on Earth? Like I'm just we're just boys now. It's kind of like when your brother is like, a celebrity or something. It's like they're less impressed about that stuff at Thanksgiving. You know what I mean?
Right. No, I definitely agree with a lot of the stuff you just said.
I've been loving all the Sonya scenes. I love her wordplay. I love her dialogue. I meant to talk about that in the beginning. I always love her work in other projects. Yeah. Big fan of. Is she the one from The Favorite or am I?
Yeah, she was the queen.
Yeah,
she was in The Crown as well.
Big fan of her as an actress, but just her here, like she's eating this in a way it's just perfect. It's just clean.
Took the words right out of my mouth, man. Episodes 1 and 2, every episode, my MVP was Sonya. Yes, 100% agree.
I'm just make sure I gave her some flowers.
Yes, man. Let's talk about her now. We cut to the scene where Nick Fury gives her a call, and I totally agree with you. She fits it like a shoe, Chris. Like I totally agree with you, man. She eased right into this role. She's easing right into this world. You understand the dynamic between her and Nick Fury. And she is playing it perfectly, and her wit and her charm and even the jokes. This show is very dire, very kind of cerebral. There's not a lot of levity to the show. It's hard to be almost not the comedic relief, but it's hard to kind of play the levity of a serious show, and she does it perfectly, bro. Especially in this scene, the whole Nicholas Fury, she found the eye. I love her, man. Now, question I have for you, Chris, can we trust her? Can we trust her, bro? And not only on the level like her being a Skrull, which I mean could be, but just in general, do you think we can trust Sonya?
I hope so. I think I'm leaning toward. I'm also like naive. I'll trust anybody, but I do believe so.
I hope so, bro. More of the conversation between Fury and Talos. I need to know, Chris, and we talked about a little bit in the bar, but this really is they're leaning into, homie, you ain't ish without us, and particularly me. Talos tells Fury, because he talks about he doesn't get the humans and the dogs connection. And he says, well, I've been cleaning up yours for 30 years. He's like, oh, really? Well, how do you explain your promotions and your rankings? Every time you got promoted is because of us. Do you feel like this scene is disrespecting all the hard work that Nick Fury has given us in the MCU? Was the man disrespected?
In my head he was disrespected, but I didn't attribute all those accolades to the Skrulls. Like,
right, we never, yeah.
Like, did they prove that? Like, can he really stand on that? Or I just
mean,
believe that
the math is mathing, Chris. We met, them in '95. We saw last week's flashback in '96 that they've been together for a while. And as he said when he first met Nick Fury, again, my memory's kind of fuzzy, young Captain Marvel, but he was a rookie. He was doing getting coffee for the head player. So it might be some facts there, Chris. It might be. But I have a rebuttal, but continue on what you were saying.
No. Go ahead.
So to this scene, I still feel as though, and there's a little bit of, yes, I do feel like there's a little bit of disrespect there, but it's also calling an ace an ace. I think there is some things that Talos has done, has been able to help Fury get on with his career and get his accomplishments. But this is the Phil Jackson, Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant conversation, Pat Riley conversation to my sports fan. Belichick and Brady. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. You have to put these people in position in order for the success to happen. So without Fury, number one, he was able to, whether he's, run game on aliens, who we always assume in pop culture that aliens are way more beyond intellect than us humans. He was able to pimp out these aliens for 30 years, Chris. He was able to say, hey, do my laundry, take care of these bad things while I'll find you guys a home. So I say all that to say, Chris, he's still Nick Fury. He is still that dude that he was able to infiltrate in his own way these aliens to do his leg work, to do his heavy lifting. And he still is Nick Fury. That doesn't take away from him creating the Avengers, for the Avengers running at him during Age of Ultron. He's still Nick Fury. I mean, Winter Soldier, he went toe-to-toe with Bucky in a certain sense, able to escape, death. So I still feel as though there's still respect on his name for the simple fact that this show is based on Nick Fury, right? He's the lead of the show. So I still think there is respect on his name. And I still feel as though, even though, they were doing his work, he hired them to do the work. So I don't know. What do you think about that, Chris?
I never questioned Fury, feeling out of place. Like, he really walks the walk and talks the talk. So it's like, I feel like someone who was less than wouldn't really sell it. You know what I mean? Like, if they knew that they were just getting carried by another group or another person, like they couldn't really sell that to us. But I got to give you some points on that rebuttal.
Is that dude, and he had to put those Skrulls in position for 30 years, and they still listen to, and they're still listening to him. Talos tells him later in this episode, "I'm not with him, I'm with you." So he's still that guy. You know what I'm saying? So I think, but Chris, I mentioned earlier this little nitpick, but they're in the house with Captain Bob. And I love the whole, no one calls me Nick. That's how I knew that it wasn't Talos, which I've seen some people say that, and we'll talk about Rhodey later, that Rhodey called him Nick last week, which might allude to Rhodey on the phone later in this episode being a Skrull. But they're in the house. And again, this goes back to my graphic. Why didn't he just kill Talos? The Skrull Bob stops from killing Talos because Nick Fury has his son.
Mm-hmm.
It's not his son. It's you're impersonating a father, which makes me question, Chris, just kind of the science of like when you take a memory of someone, you take the face of someone, and we don't know how long he's been Captain Bob. One would assume maybe a couple years, maybe a couple months, maybe it's just a blip. But I'm like, why does he have an infinite love for this kid, this human that's not even his? Which I don't know, Chris. Maybe that's the weakness of the Achilles heel of the Skrulls. Have hurt their kids or threatened to hurt their kids, as we'll talk about with Talos later. That was a trigger for him twice in this episode. Am I wrong in thinking that, Chris, that like that Skrull was like, "Don't hurt my son"? Like, bro, that's not even your son, bro. That's like,
but I think that you could just make the argument to say like they just don't like harming children, period, or maybe when you do accept that body, maybe the longer you stay in it,
you're
you're picking up feelings. Like, I mean, like, because doesn't that help you be a better Skrull? Like if I transformed into you, but didn't know your day to day, I couldn't go to your job and be like,
I got you.
Yeah, like you don't know who to really hang with and talk to or whatever, who you eat lunch with or how you eat lunch with your enemies, bro. I have your whole shit messed up. But yeah, so maybe there's something there.
I got you. I got to agree with you on that, Chris. I think there is a level of like, and assuming that if he did take on this form of Captain Bob, that has been years, and maybe he has caught feelings for his son and his wife and his life, because they've been living this life for however many years. So it might be a little bit of that. But in my head, I'm like, if you're just big bad Skrull, you're about that cause, you're about that life, go ahead and kill the boy. I'm not giving up these codes. I'm not giving up your boy. Speaking of dumb decisions, my man. So they tie up Bob. Bob's like, okay, I'm not giving you the codes to the, the missiles or whatever the case to start World War III.
In my living room.
Yeah. So what I thought was a very dumb move, and this just speaks to, again, the whole kid, and this is actually graphics, or Talos, that's his real daughter. So that I give him reasons of why you threaten my daughter, you bring up my daughter's name, I'm going to snap. But it's so silly to me, Chris, that he snapped at this moment where these missiles can launch if you don't get the codes. Bob tells him, he doesn't even threaten Gaia's life. He just says that your daughter's a snitch or whatever. And that makes him shoot the man in the chest, killing him, Chris. I don't know if it's to this extent, Chris, but as soon as he did that to me, the first thing I thought of, and I know a lot of people were hating on this man for years and still do, Peter Quill, a.k.a. Star-Lord, Infinity War, losing his anger, Thanos, they could have got the gauntlet, blah, blah, you know how the rest plays out.
Yeah.
As soon as Talos shot at him, I'm like, dude, you just risk not only your daughter's life, but this whole conversation of humanity, all because he brought up your daughter's name. Am I tripping, Chris? Was that a idiotic decision? On top of, then he makes it worse, Chris, because then he calls Gaia, who's his mole or plant in this situation around enemies. What if she didn't pick up the phone, Chris? What if she was talking to Gravik, Chris? What if she was busy?
Yeah.
The world's the show's over.
You are 1,000% not wrong in thinking that. I didn't go deep into it.
That's where I was.
But no, it makes a lot of sense. And then that whole to your point, it's like it is very Star-Lord of it.
I thought it was a very silly move because again, this is a show. I don't know. I won't call it a plot hole, but that was a very risky thing to do, to kill the guy that has the codes and then assume that Gaia was going to be able to pick up the phone, that she wasn't in the same room with Gravik, that she wasn't near her phone in general. And what if the phone was on her bed? And I don't know, man. I think that was a very rookie mistake for him to do that and risk the lives of, the war to start, but also his daughter's life, because he didn't. And this, I don't know. I don't really want to prolong this, but then he calls her, tells her to get the codes. Chris, that's a lot of pressure. How did you expect for her to get the codes? As we see the scene, she has to go into the room, break her, her undercover nature, had defined the man's memory. Lucky enough, she's a smart character that she realized that the son was in all the things and Zachary was a code name. I don't know, Chris. Maybe I'm just not letting this go. That was I don't know if that's a bad written scene, if that's a character flaw. Is that just show that he is so a fatherly figure that he's willing to risk it all just because? And I mind you, Chris, he didn't threaten to kill his daughter. He just mentioned Gaia's name. I mean, hell, you can't even say her name and he's going to snap like that?
No, you're not wrong. And I think if he's really a old school general, he's kind of acting out of character, out of a general's character, because it's like, bro, generals have family too, but they don't bring the case for that. So it's just like, it seems a little extreme. And I don't know if there's some twist coming or if it's just kind of maybe like a little poorly written. Maybe the AI didn't write it right. But I think it's a little out of character.
I 100%
for someone who's supposed to be like an expert of the art of war.
Yep, he was the leader of the Skrulls and Captain Marvel. That is something I do remember, and he's been around all these different leaders all these years. Yeah, I thought that was a very dumb decision. And to your point, as far as like what does it speak to later in the season, Talos told Nick Fury in episode 1 that he doesn't want to kill any of his people. Like when they were fighting that arms dealer in the art house, he was like, Nick, don't shoot him, and then Nick killed him. He was mad. he doesn't want to lose anyone, humans and Skrulls included. So I think we might see him be pushed to the edge. He might kill because when he finds out what happens to his daughter, I don't know. We'll talk about it, Chris. Will he blame Nick? Or will he be on a blood hunt and try to find Gravik because of what he did? Zoom in and see who else is in that little pod. Is that I'm seeing who that black guy is, Chris. I'm trying to zoom in. I know I want to bring him up. That kind of looked like an Anthony Mackie. I don't know if I'm tripping, Chris. Am I tripping? Is that Cap? It's a black guy. We know. So I don't think it's Don Cheadle because he has a hairline.
But it could be a black woman, though. No,
it looks like a man. I'm trying to. Can y'all see it on? I'm trying. That's as far as I can zoom in. It looks like a dude.
I don't know.
Got a hairline here. Well, I don't know if y'all can see my mouse, but
yeah, the hairline crispy.
I think that's a dude. I don't know if it's Don Cheadle. I don't know if it's Captain America. We don't got a lot of black folks in the MCU. So I don't know who that Blade, Mahershala Ali. But also too, I don't know if that white woman, if that's Professor Dalton, the person that's creating the experiment. I don't know who this white woman is. But I just want to know, man, who's in these pods, Chris. I just want to take a lineup and see who they got lined up to be a Skrull. But they don't launch the missions. They're able to. And also, too, to be honest with you, Chris, I'm like, this is episode 3. We're not about to see a World War III break out in an episode of Which question at hand. Well, 2 in the last few scenes here, Chris. Number 1, Gaia makes it out, but then she runs into Gravik, who says, I knew it was you. Essentially, I gave you all the intel, and you came to be the snitch. She's, turn around. No, if you're going to kill me, do it in my face. And she ran, boom, shoots her in the chest, Chris. Out of body experience, one shot to the chest. Question at hand, Chris, is she dead? Do you bring in Emilia Clarke for 3
She was in Last Christmas, great movie.
Last Christmas, great movie. Yeah, very underrated movie.
No, I don't think she's dead. I thought about that too, because it's like another movie thing. It's like, oh, one shot, bro. Like, you're a goon. Like, you're not saving bullets. Like, you could just really kill her. And then it's like we just saw him heal, so maybe she has some of that they show later. From the extremists or something like that, but I never for a second thought she was dead. And I know, like, I don't watch Game of Thrones, but I understand she's a big name, so like you wouldn't just do that.
Yeah. So and I agree with you, Chris. My reason, and this is immediately when I watched the episode, and this is the power of. We talked about the lack of marketing, but one of the marketing was the trailer. And I don't watch as many trailers as I used to back in the day because they do give away a lot in trailers nowadays.
Yeah, same.
I don't know if you remember, Chris, but in the trailer of this show, there was a lot of shots of one Emilia Clarke throughout this series. I got a couple here I'm going to bring up on the screen. There's a scene that is Emilia Clarke seemingly crying over someone's death. I assume that Talos might be meeting his demise in this show, if I were to guess. We talked about him being on a blood hunt and him trying not to get someone killed. He ends up getting himself killed. There's one shot of her that we haven't seen in the show. There's another shot, Chris, that's in the trailer that we haven't seen. And in particularly, this is what I'm getting at, Chris. There's several shots in the trailer that we haven't seen in the show. Now, when I tweeted about this a little bit earlier, because I saw a lot of people saying, because some people were taking it like Marvel's killing all the women. They kill Maria Hill. They're killing Emilia Clarke. They just hate women. I'm like, sure, okay. But no, I don't think that's the case. Fringing, I think, is the term when they, a woman's death or a woman character has to build up a man. I don't think that's the case here. So there's that. And then some people are like, well, we know Marvel likes to trick people with their trailers. Sure. But I don't think that's the case in this matter. But the biggest point that you mentioned, Chris, is there's a reason why they mentioned Super Skrulls like 10 times in this episode. There's also a reason why they showed Gravik getting his hand cut and made it an emphasis to show that he can re-heal himself. That's because, like you said, Chris, I think that she did take, I don't know if it's a shot, this is a drink, if you got to go on a machine to get to Super Skrulls, whatever it is, I think she took it. I think she took the medicine to make her a Super Skrull, and we don't see the body. They linger on the shot of him driving away, but we don't, I was waiting for her to maybe pop up, but they got to, build suspense and whatnot.
Yeah.
I think that she's going to be a Super Skrull later in the show, some way, somehow.
Yeah. I mean, she wouldn't sign on to this project to just end it right here. Like she read that script. Like,
there's another shot that we haven't seen yet, and another shot that we haven't seen yet. And also this shot, if you look behind her, that looks like Nick Fury's wife. Well, I think it was more of a wife. But hey, you might be right. You might be right.
No, I think you're right because of the hair.
Like people said on Twitter, "Oh, Marvel trickery with trailers." But I'm
it's
like,
also
no.
reference the Hulk and
The Hulk
Infinity War and all
Infinity
that.
War, yeah, and
Which I
there's
never
other
remember
examples, but
that happening.
whatever. But we'll see. I think she's gonna be okay. But I guess the bigger question, Chris, is if she is alive, I'm like, is that a Marvel issue that they just keep fake killing characters just to bring them back? I mean, we talked about Winter Soldier earlier. Nick Fury literally faked his death. We're assuming Maria Hill's going to come back some way, somehow. And the same with Emilia Clarke. Does it take away stakes?
No, not for this one, because
okay,
like you're making a valid point, but I don't think this one in particular does that because like we didn't warn her, like they didn't bury her, like this is a quick scene. She was just shot. Like no one said she was dead. He just drove away right away. So like anything could have happened. She could have just passed out. She could have had a bulletproof vest on and just was playing dead. Like so this one I'm gonna give him a pass if she comes back. If and when she comes back.
Only issue I have with the bulletproof vest thing is when what the show has shown us is when the Skrull dies, they go back to their form. Finger get cut off. We saw a Skrull finger. The captain in this episode got shot. So I guess I'm kind of going back. I think she could be dead, but they're going to find a way to bring her back. And I think that way is she has extremis in her blood. Or if she's still alive, you can put them in a machine and they can, bring themselves back. But to go to answer my own question, does it take away from the moment? No, because I think at the end of the day, it still shows us that Gravik is not about those games. He killed her cold-blooded. I'm moving on to the next one, right? He didn't hesitate. Like she was going to give him like a little speech. You're a leader. And he just shot her. So I think it's still, the impact is still there that he's willing to kill someone he grew up with when he was a kid, someone that's obviously his nemesis daughter. So I think it still works in that extent. And I don't think it takes away, if we see her come back, it doesn't take away from the gravity of the scene that he's willing to kill someone like her at any moment. So we'll see. It's all about execution, how they
you didn't mean that.
Yeah, I did. It's just, it's scripted, bro. I got it right here. That's good. But speaking of this last scene, Chris, Nick Fury's wife, she gets a call, or not a call, but she gets a call. I don't know why she had to go through all this just to get a gun. Priscilla. Yes, Priscilla. She gets a call. She goes to this place, very high-end bank,
sterile,
but she gets a gun. I'm like, why does which you would imagine this has to be some important gun, because why didn't she just have a gun in her house? But she goes there, she gets a call, Chris, and immediately I'm like, that's Don Cheadle's voice. The subtitles don't allude to it, but I think someone on Twitter said the Mexican dub says it's Rhodey, James Rhodes, that called. It's Rhodey, Chris. So the question is, I guess it's safe to assume that Rhodey, which was a question last week, is he a Skrull? Was he not? I didn't think he was a Skrull, but your thoughts, Chris. Rhodey's a Skrull, bro. What do you feel about it? Has he been a Skrull since Iron Man 1 with Terrence Howard Main? Has he been a Skrull since the blip? Is he even a Skrull? Maybe he's just working with the. I don't know, because he seems to be working with the government, Chris.
I didn't understand because I watched some stuff and read some tweets after the episode today, and they were like, "Oh, that means Rhodes." I didn't understand. Like I was supposed to know that was Rhodes on the phone. Was that his voice?
You couldn't tell by his voice. Yeah.
Okay. But, no, sorry. And then, but what did he say in the call that said? Hey?
So she said, "I want to talk to Gravik." He said, "Well, he's not here. You got to."
You're talking to me. Yeah.
So I mean so why would Rhodey be talking to Gravik? So like,
okay.
And plus, it also, I guess, to go back, it shows that she's working with Gravik because in the scene with her and Nick Fury, she's like, when you left, I had to go back to my old self, which is all things Skrulls are important to me. So I guess this scene is showing that she's also working for Gravik for whatever reasons. I talked about it earlier. Maybe that was her adopted son, and she wants to protect him. If that means that she has to get in danger, yeah, man. So thoughts, Chris, on Nick's baby mama, or at least his wife, being working with the enemy? Is she a double agent? And your thoughts on Rhodes essentially being confirmed to be a Skrull?
If Rhodes is a Skrull, like from the beginning, like would a Skrull, like could they break their legs like that? From like, is that possible?
From Civil War.
From Civil War. and if he's a Skrull, meaning, or if someone just scrolling pretending to be him, then where's the real him?
Right, because what we've been establishing is that if they have taken on a form of these world leaders, as we saw the one news reporter, we saw the prime minister, you would assume that Rhodes has been in that. He's in that. Maybe when I mentioned earlier that black guy, man, that was Rhodes. But yeah, man, because I'm starting to think, Chris, like even
because wasn't he talking to Nick? Didn't you say that he said no one calls me Nick
last week? Yeah, in last week's episode.
But he didn't just meet Nick Fury, so it's like, what did they used to call him in the other Avenger movies? Like,
it's true, bro. That's what it makes me think. Yeah, that maybe they don't have Rhodes, or just I don't know, bro. I don't know. That's a good question. It's a good question. Because I'm just thinking of like all the roads, not even like trying to go back to 2000 when we first got introduced to Don Cheadle's roads and Iron Man 2, but like his actions in Infinity War, like he brought in the Avengers, and like you think of Civil War, him siding with, I don't know, like I wonder if it, and then, like Agent Ross, how long is Agent Ross?
A little weird. He was talking at the Fury a little weird in that scene.
Yeah.
And that scene, the dialogue was great, like I said, but the scene was weird. Then the security gets his hand broken and the gun taken. What kind of security is this?
Right, he's lacking. That's good. I don't know, man. Because my thing last week, the reason I felt like he wasn't a Skrull last week is because when he was talking to the world leaders, and they were like, Nick Fury did this in Moscow. We need to do this, and you need to recommend. Like, why? If Rhodey was against Fury, if he is a Skrull, why wouldn't he just be like, yeah, we need to take him down, kill him, bring him in? But he was like, no, we don't have.
Yeah, he's like, we can't prove that. Nobody trusts the Russians.
Yeah, why would he defend Nick Fury if he's a Skrull and wants to take him down? So it makes me think that there's another Rhodey, but then why would that Skrull impersonate? Like, I guess it plays with the audience, obviously, but why would he impersonate Rhodes if he's talking to Priscilla? Why wouldn't he just be his normal Skrull self? Like, why does it have to be Rhodes' voice on the phone impersonating a Skrull? Well, impersonating him.
Yeah.
Questions that hopefully we'll find out next week, man. But I guess the bigger question for if it is revealed to be a Skrull, that he's been a Skrull, whether it's since the beginning, since we've seen him on screen, or somewhere in between the blip. Do you care, Chris? Like, because one of the things I read last week, some scooper online was like, there will be a reveal in this show that one of our favorite characters, or I think they might have said an Avenger, is going to be one of the big reveals of the show. Is one of a beloved Avenger will be revealed to be a Skrull.
Okay, well that checks out. That checks out for that because he is beloved. He has no real. He's one of everyone's favorites.
Yeah.
You're asking me, what did you ask?
If you find out that Rhodey's been a Skrull, let's just say this whole time, will you be like, oh my, will it be mind-boggling to you, or is it just like?
It'll be mind-boggling, but then I would imagine rewatching some of that stuff, it wouldn't. I hope it lines up, but it might be like, I don't know, he wouldn't have done that, or he wouldn't have acted that way.
Chris, man, we broke it down, top to bottom, Easter eggs, theories.
It's still not my favorite Disney Plus show, but interesting enough for me to find out what's going on here. And they got 3 episodes to stick this landing, which we always debate.
It's a big order, man. A lot of stuff to throw in there. And I'm hopeful, because I will say that it's not my favorite 3 episodes in. We all know what reigns number one for me is low key. As far as like dialogue, I really enjoyed the dialogue. It's very sharp, very focused, very impactful, some serious, real conversations. And the acting's been superb, man. And I'm okay with the lack of action, Chris, if I'm being honest with you. I love me some action, especially in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but I love that the show has restrained itself from not leaning on the action, but mostly leaning on these incredible actors, Olivia Colman, Sam Jackson, Ben Mendelsohn, the list goes on. So I love that they're leaning into the talent, man. Enjoy today's commentary. Make sure to like, share. My man's Chris. Link can be found in the description of this video, including you're awesome. Stay safe. And if anyone calls you by your first name, they're probably a Skrull. So that's just a pro tip for you all. We will see you guys on the next video.
Peace out. See y'all next week. Nice.